From Voice Award honoree Necessary Roughness, Makad Brooks.
I teared up. That guy is so good. It's crazy. Thank you so much. This is my first time at the Voice Awards, and I'm happy to be here. Necessary Roughness won the Series Award last year for its portrayal of mental health and substance abuse issues. It's a beautifully written show, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm also proud that my character, TK, is dealing with some mental health issues in an honest and open way. What I hope I'm portraying in this role is the many facets of an individual who's dealing with a mental health challenge. TK clearly has physical talent and compassion, and he's very much a part of his community. When he needs help, he has no problem asking for it, and that's why he gets it. The people around him are a support system, and they help him reach out to his full potential. That's the theme of our program tonight, being able and available to people who are in our lives and who need us. We'll talk more about this in a minute. But first, I'd like to introduce my fellow co-hosts for tonight. Up here, probably.
Also, I'm very tenacious. It means being very persistent. I'm like this because I have something called Asperger's. Having Asperger's makes some things very difficult for me, like looking people in the eye or saying hello. So I don't do those things very often. Some things also come very easily to me because I have Asperger's, like being smart and remembering almost everything. Also, it means being tenacious. And so I will be tenacious about the vending machines. Another thing about Asperger's is that I always keep my promises. So when I tell you that I will bring back the vending machines, you can believe me. Some people say that having Asperger's can sometimes be a bad thing, but I'm glad I have it, because I think it's my greatest strength.
Talk about being good. Ladies and gentlemen from Parenthood, please welcome Max Burkholder.
My show, Parenthood, has taken home a few Voice Awards in the past. But the real gift is knowing that the fictional character Max represents thousands of real ones who, just like him, are doing great because they have support and inclusion from those in their lives. Family and friends and community. These are all important supports to individuals with mental health and substance abuse issues. Tonight, we'll be introducing you to programs and individuals who have contributed their time and compassion to improving the health of our country. We would not be here if it weren't for the vision and determination of our friends at SAMHSA. To kick off our celebration, please welcome SAMHSA's Principal Deputy Administrator, Kana Enomoto.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, welcome to the 8th Annual Voice Awards program. Tonight, we come together to honor individuals from Hollywood and around the country who have used their voices to teach us about the challenges and strengths shared by millions of Americans affected by mental and substance use disorders. They are our family, they are our friends, they are our peers, they are our colleagues and our coworkers. They need us, and we need them. Reducing the impact of substance abuse and mental illness on America's communities is our mission. We must take every opportunity possible to educate ourselves and each other about mental health and substance abuse, particularly about the value of prevention and the reality of recovery. In any given year, 1 in 4 adults experiences a mental illness or a substance use condition. 45 million Americans suffer from things like depression or anxiety, schizophrenia, or PTSD. 23 million will need treatment for alcohol or drug abuse. We all know somebody, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, who has struggled or will struggle with behavioral health issues at some point in their lives. But too many Americans who struggle with mental illness or substance abuse are still suffering in silence rather than seeking help. Today, less than 40% of people with mental illnesses receive treatment, and a startling 90% of people with substance use disorders do not get the treatment they need. We would not accept it if only 40% of Americans got treatment for cancer, or if only 10% of children with diabetes got help. Why, then, should we accept it when it comes to treating mental illness and substance abuse? We need to ensure that people who would never think twice before seeing a doctor for a broken arm or a heart condition, that they have the same attitude when it comes to their behavioral health. In June of this year, President Obama launched a national conference on mental health to let Americans know it is okay to talk about mental illness and substance abuse. He said, "What helps more than anything, what gives so many of our friends and loved ones strength, is the knowledge that you are not alone. You're surrounded by people who care about you and who will support you on the journey to get well. We're here for you." Tonight, we're going to highlight areas of support that are critical to such recovery. Our program will be presented in 3 segments: colleagues and coworkers, friends and family, and consumers and peers. Individuals who are seeking a path to health and wellness find greater success when they don't have to walk that path alone. And tonight, we're also going to give you an opportunity to participate in a town hall-style discussion of these issues. Our special guests will include members of the entertainment and peer communities. We'll talk about ways that all of us can be supportive of individuals with mental and substance use disorders, and you'll be able to ask questions of your own. We're excited about where this conversation will take us, but first I'd like to welcome, via video, my boss and the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius, who has a special message for us.
Hi, I'm Secretary Kathleen Sebelius. I'm sorry I'm not with you tonight, but I'm delighted to address so many people who are helping change the conversation about behavioral health. As you know, far too many people living with mental illness and substance use disorders don't receive the care they need. But with the Affordable Care Act, we're starting to change that. More than 71 million Americans can already get free preventive services like screenings for alcohol abuse and depression. Together with the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, the new law will expand behavioral health benefits and federal parity protections to cover 62 million more Americans. And in 6 days, the new health insurance marketplace opens for enrollment in every state for coverage that starts as soon as January 1st, 2014. All plans in the new marketplaces will cover essential benefits, including behavioral health services. And discrimination based on a pre-existing condition, like depression or bipolar disorder, will be outlawed forever. But just because people have access to the new coverage options doesn't mean they'll enroll. And that's why I'm asking for your help. You can tell people about healthcare.gov and encourage them to enroll. Now, if we're really going to turn a corner, we also need a change of hearts and minds to break down social barriers to care. That's why President Obama hosted a national conference on mental health back in June, to encourage everyone across the country to start a conversation in every community and in every household. And that's what makes the Voice Awards so special. All of tonight's honorees know how to tell stories that not only entertain, but inspire and educate. In the face of destructive stereotypes, these stories showcase people who have overcome challenges to live healthy and productive lives. And in the process, they help raise awareness, reduce fear and shame, and support recovery from mental illness and substance use disorders. So congratulations to all of tonight's winners, and thank you all for moving the conversation forward.
Thank you, Ms. Enomoto and Secretary Sebelius. Round of applause for them. Thank you. Before we begin our award presentations, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the loss of two talented young men, both of whom were very special to the folks who work here in the Paramount lot and many of us in the world. In July, our industry was shocked by the passing of Corey Monteith, star of Glee, and by all accounts, a bright light in the lives of everyone that knew him. Glee has twice been named a Voice Award honoree for its positive portrayal of mental health issues. And something that's hard for me, in August, Rizzoli and Isles, also filmed at Paramount, we lost my friend, a talented young actor named Lee Thompson Young, who died by suicide. And I miss him every day. And just a personal note, that sometimes we don't always wear our problems on our sleeves. So if you know people who are introverted, sometimes ask them. Ask them what's going on. Ask them what's wrong. And truly listen. These tragedies are a heartbreaking reminder of why this work is so important. So let's take a moment of silence to honor these two young men and those in Paramount and those in the world who still feel their loss every day. Thank you. Tonight's awards begin with a focus on giving a voice to colleagues and coworkers. Not everyone has a close friend or family member to confide in about sensitive matters, so workplaces can become a difficult place to experience mental health or substance abuse problems. And being socially accepted and successful at work is as critical to recovery as being invited to the neighborhood barbecue or included in the family reunion. Colleagues and coworkers can be the beacon of hope when personal relationships have faltered. Our honorees are showing how that can play out. Feel free to take notes. Our first award presenter tonight, R.J. Smith, who plays teaching assistant Max Lewicki in the new series Perception.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, Max Lewicki, that is my name. How you guys doing? In Perception, Dr. Daniel Pierce is an eccentric neuroscience professor with paranoid schizophrenia. He occasionally experiences hallucinations that allow him to make connections that his conscious mind cannot process, which is why the FBI taps him to help solve complex cases. At other times, the hallucinations lead him to behave in irrational ways. Fortunately, Dr. Daniel Pierce has a fulfilling career and supportive group of colleagues, like myself, to help him balance this disorder with the demands of daily life. I am extremely proud to present the 2013 Voice Award to the series Perception. And accepting tonight is Michael Sussman, writer and co-executive producer.
This is an honor and a privilege. I share this with my co-creator, Ken Biller, and of course also with Eric McCormick, who has created such a wonderful character in Dr. Pierce. And thank you. And proves to the audience every week that you can have a crime show where the person with a mental challenge is in fact the hero and not the villain, which I think is important. I'd particularly like to thank our friends and partners at TNT for making the show possible: Michael Wright, Lila McCarthy, Brett Weitz, Sam Linsky, Sharon Byrons, Adrian Orion, as well as our partners and friends at ABC Studios. My manager, Jonathan Baruch, for his love and support as well. As you know, Eric McCormack, before he played Dr. Pierce, blazed the trail on Will and Grace, and the vice president himself credited that show with doing more to educate the American people about gays and lesbians than anyone else. And if perception can have even a fraction of the impact in educating people about mental illness, I know all of us involved with the creation of the show would be very grateful. Thank you so much for this wonderful honor.
Next, we have the newsroom. The newsroom follows a cable news program staff as they do their jobs despite corporate and commercial obstacles and their own personal entanglements. In this Voice Award-winning episode, anchor Will McAvoy admits to his executive producer that he is experiencing insomnia after she dings him for a poor on-air performance. While batting around a few options to resolve his sleeplessness, Will says he is going to see his therapist again. I'm very, very, very proud to present the 2013 Voice Award to the newsroom. And accepting this award is Erica Soto.
I just want to say on behalf of Aaron Sorkin, Alan Poole, and the newsroom cast and crew, and also on behalf of HBO President Michael Lombardo, we are so very grateful for this honor. We're grateful to SAMHSA, to the Voice Awards, and everybody at HBO is incredibly honored by this. Thank you so much.
Our next presenter portrays Abby Shudo on 3 different shows, including Voice Award winner NCIS. Please welcome the multi-talented Polly Perrette.
Oh, I love you too. Hi, Mr. Teleprompter Man. I usually don't use the teleprompter just to scare you to death. And you know, I have been grateful to be on my show NCIS for 11 years, so I consider myself sort of encyclopedia NCIS, proudly. I'm often, all the time, really proud of our show, and in the midst of doing a show about the military and about the Navy, we've been able to really deal with a lot of really important issues. Gary Glassberg, that's not your cue. I'm giving him an award in a minute. Stay there and just talk about you for a little bit. There's just been so many things that I'm so proud of, not only as a human being and as an actor, but also as like someone who studied sociology, psychology, and criminal science before I accidentally became an actor. But Gary has really had his hand in doing so many things. I'm so proud of the work that we did with really shining a light on Alzheimer's, and also with civil rights for LGBT community, with especially considering Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I'm always just so proud and so happy to be there and so grateful to God to be a part of something so outstanding. This particular two-part episode that we're here for tonight was, it was about PTSD, and I know there was just a lot of thought, a lot of care and love that went into these episodes. And we have an altercation with someone in the military, which is how NCIS usually starts. Every episode for 240 episodes. But in the investigation of the episode, we find out that clearly this young soldier has PTSD and is really struggling. And it was just I was so proud of my writers and producers about the way that they presented it. And then also that thing of, trying to get someone, especially someone in the military, to say, it's okay. Like, there's help for you. And this is, this is happening. Me personally, I have severe complex PTSD myself. So I know how confusing it is, and I know how hard it is. And it's a tough thing to navigate, but it can be done. So we're going to roll the clip from this. This is, well, I'm very proud of this, Gary. I'm so proud to present this Voice Award to our NCS writer and executive producer, Gary Glassberg.
Wow, this is really lovely. I'm actually moving the little step up so that, because I'm not the tallest man in the world. And I'm not using the teleprompter either, so. Thank you, Polly. This is very, very special to me, and thanks to all of you here tonight as well. The idea to do a two-part storyline focusing on the subject of PTSD didn't originate with me. We have an open communication with the military, and it was Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus who told me this was a subject matter that needed to be discussed. And he was right. Yes, NCIS is fiction. We entertain, we laugh, we solve crimes and mysteries, but we're also a show grounded in the realities of the Navy and the Marine Corps. And PTSD is a very real concern. So I grabbed two of my best writers, Nicole Morante Matthews and Gina Lucita Monreal, and we got to work, and they researched a lot, connecting with doctors and veterans personnel down in San Diego, and we started to assemble Shell Shocked Parts 1 and 2. Mark Harmon embraced the subject matter, the whole cast did. Guest actor Brad Beyer, who you just saw, brought the recently returned war hero suffering from PTS to life. Strong, emotional episodes of TV, but the real surprise came the night that we aired. Working with the real NCIS and the Marine Corps, we posted a public service announcement featuring Paulie and Mark after the show, and within minutes, thousands of people needing help called in and visited the website. Our attempt to entertain and do some good actually worked. Telling the right stories can make a difference. We made a difference that night. And there are many more stories to tell. So on behalf of everyone at NCIS, thank you for this lovely Voice Award and for everything this organization does to bring awareness to real issues. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Kana Enomoto to present our first SAMHSA Special Recognition Award of the evening.
Thank you. General Peter Corelli has held one leadership position after another in the U.S. Army. From serving as commander of the Multinational Corps Iraq to being the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, he knows what it means to be responsible for soldiers' well-being. Now retired from the Army, he continues his work in another forum. As the CEO of One Mind for Research, General Corelli is speaking out to eliminate the discrimination associated with service members and veterans seeking and receiving the assistance they need for the treatment of the invisible wounds of war. He is working with Representative Patrick Kennedy and others to bring together healthcare providers, researchers, academics, and the healthcare industry to improve the diagnostics, treatments, and cures for all illnesses and disorders of the brain. He is truly a passionate advocate. I'm proud to present this 2013 SAMHSA Special Recognition Award to General Peter Corelli.
This is a tremendous honor. I spent 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and had no idea what post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury was. I knew that when I had a platoon that had a rough day, I had combat stress docs that I needed to get to their location. I knew what my football coach had taught me about traumatic brain injury, that you just shake it off and get back in the game. It wasn't until I became Vice Chief of Staff of the Army in 2008 that I found that the most prolific wounds coming out of this war were post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. 67% of the most seriously wounded after 12 years of war have TBI and PTS, and we just don't know enough about it. One Mind is dedicated to changing that, to finding better diagnostics and treatments for those with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. And we want to do that by getting researchers to share databases, by adopting intellectual property rules that make sense and don't get in the way of researching, and make sure that we keep the patient at the focus of everything we do. That is absolutely critical. This is a great honor for me tonight, and I thank you.
Thank you, General. Our next presenter is an Oscar-nominated songwriter and talented actress who was recently featured in the season premiere of Bones. Please welcome Kathleen York.
Thank you. As always, I'm so honored to be here. The next award goes to the series Elementary. Following a stint in rehab, eccentric Detective Holmes is forced to live with Dr. Watson, his new sober companion. Watson starts to earn Holmes' personal and professional trust and gets him to open up about his addiction issues and the traumatic events that led to him bottoming out while in London. I'm proud to present this 2013 Voice Award to the series Elementary. Accepting this award is writer and producer Jason Tracy.
Thanks very much. There was a moment in the writer's room last season when we were trying to break a story about a preschool administrator who had denied acceptance to the wrong child and been killed by the enraged parents. The murderous mom had offed this poor guy via a rare poison found in blowfish, and all the writers looked around at each other and we felt, I don't want to say ashamed, but it was ashamed. Writing television can sometimes seem like a fundamentally unserious and undignified career, and in truth, it usually is. So it's nice to come here tonight and be reminded that our jobs can also be part of something that matters as much as bringing awareness to mental health and substance abuse issues. I'm proud to have been part of a season of television that showed a beloved character like Sherlock Holmes reaching out for help with addiction, doing the hard work, and triumphing. It beats poison blowfish. So on behalf of executive producer Rob Daugherty, Carl Beverly, Sarah Timmerman, and Craig Sweeney, I want to thank SAMHSA and the Voice Awards. It means a great deal. Thanks very much.
I'm impressed. He read that off an iPhone. Individuals with behavioral health problems often keep them secret, particularly at work. In Homeland, CIA intelligence officer Carrie Matheson has bipolar disorder. In this clip, Carrie asks her mentor, Saul, to trust her judgment on a lead despite a recent significant miscue. Later in the show, we see Saul risking his career, choosing to place his confidence in her professional intuition. I'm proud to present the 2013 Voice Award to the series Homeland. Unfortunately, they could not be here tonight and have asked me to accept the award on their behalf.
Our next segment focuses on the support of friends and family. It should be a no-brainer that friends and family would rally around someone they love who has a behavioral health disorder. But most of us know that family dynamics can sometimes be complicated, and friendships have many levels. Disclosing a mental health or substance use problem to someone close to you is often the hardest step. The next few honored productions and individuals show how friends and family members can ensure that their loved ones feel supported, understood, and accepted. It's my pleasure now to introduce you to a remarkable individual who fought through heroin addiction, depression, and 2 suicide attempts before he was age 20. An Air Force veteran who served as a medic, he felt powerless when so many injured soldiers died in his care. Today, Robert McKinley Gilmore Sr. is an ordained minister and national certified counselor who is active in the Hope After Project and who works with the City of Houston, Harris County, and Gulf Coast leadership. His call is to the faith-based community, specifically African American leadership, to respond to the White House call to address mental illness in the Black community. I am pleased to present the Consumer Peer Leadership Award to Robert McKinley Gilmore, Sr.
Take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world.
It's a blessing for me to be here from Houston, Texas. I thank God for being here because at the age of 19, I tried to commit suicide. But it's because of the prayers of my 2 grandmothers, Other Mama and Bobo, that I'm here tonight. I thank my mother who had a bipolar disorder, but she knew who to call, and that was my grandmothers. I'm thankful to my wife, Jacqueline K. Davis Gilmore in Houston, Texas, who puts up with my PTSD, as the journal said and the show showed. Then I've got Robert McKinley Gilmore Jr. sitting in the audience tonight. Stand up, Robert Jr. He's the producer here, and I'm grateful. Our message is that we need to listen to the White House call, the Conference on Mental Health, with a wake-up call. We're in a national call in America. We must address the problem of mental illness and addiction, and those who are in denial that it is not real. All the incidents you saw last week, those in Virginia, those in New Orleans, those in Chicago, are a reflection of the abnormalities in our community. There are some sick people who are on the streets, but there are some sick people who are in elected positions who will not do what they need to do. We have some in Texas. And so, this award now called the Hope After Project. Go online, www.hopeafter.org. Get one of the books free, 1 million copies. And to the African American community and leadership, wake up. Prayer and oil is not enough. Some of us need therapy. It's a blessing.
Can we get an amen? Amen. All right, brother. Thank you very much. You too. All right. Please welcome the star of the provocative new web series, Unwritten Rules, Aja Davis.
That was awesome. Having suffered addictions and suicide attempts, compassion is what saved Drew Horn's life. Today, he's bringing the same compassion to others as a motivational, inspirational, and therapeutic comic and clown through the Turn a Frown Around Foundation. His message: be a friend. Drew believes that friendship is the missing link in wellness and recovery. His vision is to populate the world with what he calls smile stations, a gathering of volunteers who befriend those in isolation and in need of those basic human needs, acceptance and love. I am so proud to present Drew Horn with this 2013 Voice Award for Consumer Peer Leadership.
Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness, roll a tear, and maybe ever so near. And if you smile through your fears and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow, you'll see that life is still worthwhile if you just.
I woke up Tuesday morning and I was still negotiating whether I could fight through my depression to get here. And it was like cosmic. As I went to push the snooze button, I heard that Cory Booker, who is running for senator in New Jersey, went to Hollywood to find help and support from Hollywood for the Democratic Party. And I said to myself, I'm starting my own political party. I'm calling it the Compassion Party. That's where we have a lot of fun ending loneliness. Up to 50% of every grandma and grandpa in a nursing home, up to 75% of the forgotten Drews in state psychiatric institutions, and up to 90% of the throwaways in jail die without a friend. And I can't stand it anymore. I started this 12 years ago. And everyone deserves an unconditional, loving friend. So what we're doing is we're setting up smile stations in every city across the nation, like benevolentmatch.coms. There's a firehouse in every city. You know where to call if there's a fire. Well, I guarantee you that within less than a year, with your Hollywood help, this is going to become a normal scene. Monday morning, whether it's a jail, a nursing home, a psychiatric ward, you're going to hear something like this. Hey, Bob, we just got 10 new residents. 5 of them have no family or friends. Mary will say, don't worry about it, Bob. We called the Smile Station. They're sending over 5 forever friends. How hard is that, guys? This is not curing cancer. This is being our brother and sister's keeper. This is really loving each other. Guys, I am telling you that I know from experience that two things. One, I am the luckiest mentally ill person you will ever meet because I am surrounded with compassion and unconditional love and friendship. I have so many people that are the strong batteries in my life, And every time I get weak, with no judgment, they come and attach themselves. They say, I love you, I'm here for you, I accept you. Whatever you do or you don't do, I'm there for you. Guys, tough love didn't work for me. It just made me want to kill myself more. But when I found people that said, Drew, I'm with you no matter what. I'm a good detective. Drew, I see the good in you. Come on, buddy, you can do it. I'm here, I'm here. I had the courage to find Drew and move forward. And I want to say right now, from the bottom of my heart, I tease, and they're writing a book about our work. It's entitled, I'm So Bipolar, I Should Have Been an Elevator Operator. But I tell them that there was a book written about me way before then. It Takes a Village. You're seeing your work. And if any of you are in the mental health substance abuse field, don't you dare get weary in well-doing, because there's zillions of Drews out there that are waiting to get attached with strong batteries so they can become fully who they really are. Don't you get weary in well-doing. You have saved my life over and over and over and over again. But I also want to tell you, I am the most desperate person in this room tonight. I've been doing this for 12 years, guys. And when I started this Jelly Donut Entertainment to go in and not only just have a good time and bring people with me and entertain, but to inspire, to let people know how important they are, I have experienced what I am going to tell you hundreds of times in the last 12 years. It's always the same thing. I go in, I'm very manic, and you saw me running around here today, and I go in to give them the super hug. They're in a nursing home, and I reach down, and then when I go to get up, they're not letting me up, and when we finally get up, they're crying. Every one of them. Please don't leave me here. Could you come see me again? I have nobody. These are people. People. So, I have been told 10 of these 12 years, I swear to you, more than I need money, I need Hollywood. That's what I was told. I was told I'm selling compassion in America. And so I am going to beg. I am begging. I need a Danny Thomas who started, what was the hospital? I need Jerry Lewis to gather his Rat Pack. I need a face for Grandma. I need a face for the forgotten. I need a face for compassion. And I am telling you right now, I don't need this award. I'm insecure, I love attention, all of that. I've gotten 12 awards, guys. Grandma needs this award, not me. So I'm going to make a deal with you, and I mean what I'm saying right now. If you will come up to me afterwards, someone that's recognizable in Hollywood, and say, Drew, I'm in for life, I will be the face of compassion for you. I will make sure that that 50% and that 75% and that 90% die with friends and dignity and feeling loved. I'll do whatever it takes, Drew. I will make sure that we end loneliness in this world by setting up your smile stations in every city across the nation. If you will do that for me, and I want to be dramatic because this is Drama City. So if a picture is worth 1,000 words, you watch me now because I mean it. I am begging you, one of you, come see me afterwards today, and we'll make an exchange. I will give you this as a down payment for my eternal gratitude for ending loneliness. Thank you. Please see me afterwards.
Yeah, give him a hug. I love him. Come here, Drew. Come here.
Hugs Anonymous? I just fell off the wagon, man. Take it
easy. This is the Voice Awards, so we all have voices, right? So yeah, good. Now please join me in welcoming a vibrant young actress who stars in Modern Family, as well as one of tonight's entertainment industry honorees, Call Me Crazy, a 5-film. What? Rewind, let's bring that back. Because y'all have some typos. Entertainment industry honorees, Call Me Crazy, a 5-film. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Hyland.
Hello. Running from Crazy examines the personal journey of model and actress Mariel Hemingway as she strives for a greater understanding of her family history of suicide and mental illness. In this scene, Mariel talks with a support group about how sharing her story and her family's experiences with mental illness and suicide have been essential to her recovery journey. I am proud to present this 2013 Voice Award for Running from Crazy. Accepting this award is executive producer Erica Forstad.
Just close your eyes, the sun is going down, you'll be alright, no one can hurt you now, come morning light, you and I.
I'm sorry it was a little bit out of sync, I noticed. Well, on behalf of Oprah Winfrey, Barbara Koppel, producer David Cassidy, Mariel Hemingway, and myself, we'd like to thank SAMHSA for this incredible honor. We are so grateful to everyone who helped make this inspirational documentary possible, particularly to Barbara Koppel for her ability to tell an honest and unique story, and to Mariel Hemingway, who was so honest and so brave in sharing her personal family history and journey with us. Mostly, we and all the producers and Mariel, we hope this becomes more than a documentary film. We want this to become a conversation and spark true, open dialogue about mental health, alcoholism, and suicide prevention. We thank you very much.
Our next presenter has the distinction of appearing in 2 Voice Awards honored productions this year, including Elementary and our next honoree. Please welcome Johnny Simmons.
The Perks of Being a Wallflower introduces us to 15-year-old Charlie, who is about to begin high school without his only close friend, who completed suicide several months earlier. Charlie finds 2 supportive friends who help him gain new confidence, but after a painful family truth surfaces, Charlie experiences an emotional setback. In the clip that follows, we see Charlie feeling comfortable in his own skin with the help of his best friends, Sam and Patrick. I'm very proud to present this 2013 Voice Award to the Perks of Being a Wallflower. Accepting this award is writer, executive producer, and director, Mr. Stephen Chbosky.
Why can't you just feel that way? I do.
Thank you very much. I wrote a few things down. You know, I gotta say first, it's wonderful to see Hollywood and SAMHSA come together for an evening. It is, because on one hand, you have a group of dedicated professionals trying to help psychologically and emotionally challenged people overcome addiction and make something positive of their lives. And on the other hand, you have SAMHSA. You know, when you prepare for something, you go, I so hope they laugh, so thank you very much. And by the way, I said SAMHSA because Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, great administration, not a great punchline. So seriously, I'm, of course, very proud to accept this award on behalf of my producers, Leanne Halfin, who's right there, Russell Smith and John Malkovich. And I also want to say, and of course, all the hundreds of professionals, actors, Johnny Simmons, there he is, so many of our actors' crew who helped us put this movie together. I also want to thank Summit, a studio that could have asked us to remove all of the issues that we are celebrating being brought into the light tonight, and they didn't. They encouraged us to say, to tell the truth about all of it. Since I wrote my novel 14 years ago, I received thousands and thousands of letters, emails, phone calls from young people. They've come to me in their classrooms and at screenings, and it's for them that I'm really standing here. These young people, we all know young people have had bad things happen to them. Some of us in this room had things happen to us. You know, these young people, they deal with mental illness, PTSD, sexual abuse, substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, depression. And some of them think they're crazy because they are gay and they think this is a terrible thing. The most common theme in all the letters that I've ever received over the last 14 years is that each young person feels like it's only them. And I'm proud to stand here with all of you, artists and community leaders alike, because your work tells these young people that they are not alone. You know, there are so many more of us than there will ever be of some phantom them. And we can find each other, and we can help each other, and we can build great lives. Because, in my opinion, happiness is not this thing for other people. It is for you, it is for me, it is for all of us, because nobody in this room is alone. I believe that when we speak the truth in our art and our lives, both professional and personal, we end a silence. And sometimes ending a silence is the only thing, and sometimes ending a silence is the only hope the world needs. So thank you very much.
Lauren Grimes struggled with numerous behavioral health challenges as an adolescent, but today is using those experiences to transform lives in her professional career. She works extensively with the field of peer support and youth-led systems change, aiding organizations in incorporating the youth voice into their policy and operations, and helping young adults to create an equitable and reciprocal relationship with their service systems. Lauren's contribution as a young adult consumer advocate have made an impact on many levels. I'm proud to present this 2013 Young Adult Leadership Award to Lauren Grimes.
Thank you so much, guys. I wanted to share a little something with you guys, and I think my passion might pale in comparison to my friends that were here, but from the time I was 11 years old, I have waded through a mess of episodic experiences with depression, mania, panic, medication, suicide attempts, more medication, medication withdrawal from flushing the medication, more depression, mania, panic, and memory loss. I've lain on my kitchen floor for more than 24 hours at a time and not moved. And I have driven 95 miles an hour down the highway writing poetry in Sharpie on my steering wheel because I was convinced that I could solve the homelessness in Baltimore City with some clever and beautiful words. Beneath all these extreme experiences for me, though, really lay some heavy but universal questions. What the hell do happy people do and how do they do it? What makes a good person? And how does one ever begin to make their lives turn out the way they want? I remember posing these grand cosmic questions to my mom as a teenager on an infuriatingly regular basis, and she always managed to answer without rolling her eyes. There are a couple things she always said to me that stick in my head, though, and it usually went something like, "Lar, happiness does not come as a crowning achievement, and it's not often something we obtain and just keep. There's not one thing that's going to fill up all of our holes, and what we do is we just try and try and try, and at some point we start to string together the happy moments, kind of like Christmas lights, except the ones that get tangled up all the time. And those happy moments that come of our trying and trying. Now, at 14 years old, I found her metaphor horribly unsatisfying, and I made sure that I told her that I rejected her lousy wisdom. But I have worked with young people in recovery now for several years, and I have repeated her lousy metaphor more than once, because it has proven as true as anything else in my life. I want to thank my mom, not for her metaphors, but for being the inevitable and unwavering support in my life through my hardest times. I want to thank my family at Honor Inn of Maryland for believing before I did that I could be both a troubled kid in my early 20s with an immense amount of emotional baggage and also be a force of kindness and support for other young people who were struggling. I want to thank SAMHSA for recognizing the heart and the effort that I've put into my work. And I want to thank all of you here tonight who are unwavering supports for others, for your loved ones, and are willing to share some of the raw and real tough stuff that builds connections between people, because that's what saves lives. And I know this night is going to be a real bright spot on my string of happy moments, and I'm so glad to be able to share it with you guys tonight.
There he is. Our next presenter is improving behavioral health outcomes right here in LA. Please welcome the Director of Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, Marvin Southard.
Mia St. John is a fighter, mostly of fellow boxers, but like all of us, she has some vulnerabilities too. When she was diagnosed at young age with obsessive-compulsive disorder, panic disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder, she was also battling alcohol and drug addiction. However, she managed to find and pursue her true passion in a somewhat unusual place for a young woman, the ring. Today, Mia St. John has achieved tremendous professional success, claiming her sport's most coveted awards and recognition. She is 25 years sober. And she speaks in schools and juvenile halls on the importance of education and overcoming hardship, sharing her personal experiences with mental illness, addiction, and poverty. She continues to promote the Mental Health in Schools Act and supports her foundation, El Saber es Poder, Knowledge is Power, I am pleased to present this Voice Award for Consumer Peer Leadership to Mia St. John.
Wow. Thank you so much. If you're all wondering, I had a hip replacement, and that's why it's so difficult for me to walk. But I had to be here tonight because, wow, like out of all the titles that I've won in my career, I think I'm most proud of this one. Thank you. I want to thank Marvin Southard with the Department of Mental Health for all that he's done and all of his hard work, and SAMHSA and the Voice Awards. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I never prepare a speech. I can't remember anything anyway. It's boxer's memory. So I just talk from the heart. But, you know, I have to admit that, you know, boxing saved my life. Because I really honestly believe that I would have ended up in jail had it not been for boxing. But somewhere in the midst of my career, I realized that, you know, there just had to be something more out there for me. I refused to believe that my sole purpose on this earth was to beat the crap out of another human being. I wanted to believe that what I call God, for lack of a better name, my higher power, put me on this earth for so much more. I had a greater purpose, and that purpose was to speak out on behalf of kids like myself, Chicanas like myself that grew up drug addicted, alcoholics that suffered from mental illness, homelessness, whatever. And we all have a story. Every one of us has a story, just like myself. The point is, no matter where you came from or what you suffered from, you can do anything you want, whether it's to become a champion boxer or an Emmy Award-winning actor, whatever, you can do it. And that's the message that I wanted to give to kids, is that we have no limits, and we have to believe that. Just like that show, Perception. I'd never seen it, but I was amazed by that, because I really believe that, I mean, what is reality? Reality is simply how we perceive the world, right? My reality is certainly, I tell you, is different than anybody else's, because my mom always told me that, like the Buddha said, what I think, I become. And I truly believe that what I think, I become. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. And thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you so much for honoring me with this award.
Our next presenter is on the board of the Writers Guild of America. Please welcome Carlton Eastlake.
Being Flynn centers on a young writer seeking to define himself, as well as make peace with his father, who has been absent from his life for 18 years. After falling in hard times, the father, Jonathan, reaches out to Nick, who prepares to integrate him into his life. But sticking around is not Jonathan's forte, and Nick's sense of abandonment is renewed, testing his compassion for his father figure. I'm proud to present this 2013 Voice Award to Being Flynn. Accepting this award is writer, producer, director, and WGA member, our guild, Paul Weitz, who is accompanied by the film's namesake, Nick Flynn.
Well, for me, this is just something really meaningful to aspire to, and I'm very grateful to be here with all of you, and with my buddy Nick, who went through the psychological torture of having me do a film based on his life. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm really honored to be here, and thanks to Paul and to Dan and Andrew and everyone who made the film, and to SAMHSA for this award. It means a lot to me. We had the great honor, after the film came out, to present the film around the country to different Housing First organizations.
I should say that the film is largely set at a homeless shelter called Pine Street Inn, where Nick, in his early 20s, worked, and where he sort of re-encountered his dad, who ended up being a guest at the shelter. So
yeah. And then so we were able to show the film around the country to different Housing First, in support of Housing First organizations, to have that discussion about the ways that we have now in this country to end homelessness. So it was really an honor to be part of that. Thanks.
Now, please welcome SAMHSA's Gus Lodato, who will present tonight's second SAMHSA Special Recognition Award.
Special Recognition Award winner Patrick Kennedy is what you'd call a doer. His resume includes 16 years in the House of Representatives, where he pushed for extremely important legislation impacting the mental health and addiction community in terms of parity and equity. This work opened the treatment door to tens of millions of Americans. He has also supported bills that sought increased understanding for neurological and psychiatric disorders. Most recently, he co-founded One Mind for Research, which has aggressive goals for mapping the human mind, human brain, really. And next month, he's participating in the inaugural Kennedy Forum on Community Mental Health to celebrate the 50th anniversary of President Kennedy's signing of the Community Mental Health Act, the landmark bill that laid the foundation of contemporary mental health policy. For all of his efforts as a legislator, mental health and addictions advocate, and as a person in recovery himself, this 2013 SAMHSA Special Recognition Award is presented to Patrick Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy couldn't be with us tonight in person, but was good enough to record an acceptance address from the East Coast. Patrick Kennedy.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this great honor. I apologize I'm not there in person, but be assured I'm there in spirit. To my fellows who are also receiving awards, congratulations, particularly to my good friend and CEO of One Mind, General Pete Corelli. Thank you, General Corelli, for your work serving our nation in uniform and coming home to serve our soldiers and our American heroes by never forgetting their sacrifice and making sure that the signature wounds of the war, the invisible wounds of post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury, are not treated invisibly by our system of care. Thank you, General Corelli, for accelerating the research on the cause of brain science and accelerating the race to inner space, the inner space of our brains, to make sure that we can keep true to the cause of being there for our heroes the way they were there for us. And by liberating them from being prisoners in their minds of their traumatic brain injury and their post-traumatic stress. I salute you, General Corelli, for your efforts. And to David O. Russell, thank you, David, for taking the spotlight that you can bring in the cultural dimensions of this cause, which are so profound that really need to be tackled through the enlightenment that you bring through your movies. I loved Silver Linings Playbook, and I love the fact that you keep true to trying to make sure we break down those cultural and attitudinal barriers towards those who are suffering from a mental illness and addiction. To my fellows in recovery, we cannot do this alone. We are stronger together than we are individually, and I'm honored to be walking the road of recovery with each and every one of you. And I look forward to continuing this cause of providing a face and a voice to recovery so that in this historic time of healthcare reform, we can make sure that the whole body is covered in healthcare and that we ensure that a checkup from the neck up is integrated into overall healthcare, not only for those of us with a pre-existing condition, but also for all of our family members and friends who can benefit from mental health care and the early screening for substance abuse disorders. Thank you, SAMHSA, and thank you, Voice Awards. I wish you a wonderful evening, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in the future as we begin to break down these barriers once and for all that discriminate against those of us who are suffering from a mental illness and an addiction. Let me pay tribute to my good friend and colleague, Jim Ramstad from Minnesota, who was my co-sponsor of the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, and to pay tribute to my late father, Senator Edward Kennedy, who was our champion, taking over the reins for Paul Wellstone in the Senate, and of course, Pete Domenici for his tireless effort to make sure that healthcare in this country means healthcare from top to bottom. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Small reminder, the Affordable Health Care Act goes into effect October 1st. Tweet about it. Prostate exams for everybody. Fantastic. All right, moving on swiftly. As you've seen by the examples we've shown, you already know tonight, behavioral health issues are incredibly complex with nuances that are difficult to express, but essential to greater understanding and support and recovery. For the next several minutes, we're going to give you a chance to better understand mental health and substance use issues, both from those who've experienced it in their lives and people who have eloquently described those experiences through television and film. We encourage you to ask questions during this panel, either to a specific panelist or to the whole panel as a whole. Please welcome our moderator, writer and producer, Roger Wolfson.
Well, before I read from the teleprompter, I just want to say I didn't expect that I'd be following Patrick Kennedy. But I do want to say that I used to work for his father. I used to work in the US Senate, and I worked for Ted Kennedy, and I also worked for Paul Wellstone. So I can say with personal experience that I can say how much both of them loved and respected and fought for SAMHSA, and how there's no organization like it, and how it deserves all the attention in the world because there's no organization that spends its money better and that does more good for this nation. So thank you for that. Now I'm going to read from the prompter. It says on the prompter this is my 5th Voice Awards, but it's actually my 8th, and I've enjoyed every single one of them as much as you're enjoying them now. I know that SAMHSA is a leading resource for the discussion about mental health and addiction in our country, and they have data that prove treatment and services work. This message is so important, as are the real experiences and examples of leadership that are profiled here each year. Each of these panelists, as well as SAMHSA, can help us all better understand and portray behavioral health issues. Please join me in welcoming our panelists from the entertainment industry, starting with writer, producer, director Stephen Chbosky. Producer Kristen Hahn. Oops, I did that out of order. It's producer Marta Kaufman first, so sorry. But here comes Kristen, sorry. Now producer Marta Kaufman, sorry. And from the behavioral health community, Marvin Southard from the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, and Karis Myrick of the Project Return Peer Support Network. Now we'll start with questions that, okay, my mic is not live. We'll start with questions that came in earlier, but as Mikad mentioned, we want this to be an interactive discussion. So start thinking of your questions now, and there are microphones right over there. And please line up and we'll recognize you from the podium. I think actually... I'm going to try not to knock down the backdrop. Okay, so this is actually for all of you. Can everybody see them okay? Are you up? There you go. If you could tell your audiences one thing about behavioral health, one takeaway that's most important to you, what would that be? You want to start right here to my left?
You all did this to me last year. You always make me go first. So if there's one thing that I have to tell anybody, I think the most important message is to know that recovery is real and recovery does happen. The road sometimes isn't easy, but indeed it can happen for people, and it should be an expectation, and people cannot do it alone. I think we've heard the message over and over and over again tonight already about the importance of other people, loved ones, friends, smile guy, we got it, Drew, coming together with compassion and love to help people with behavioral health, mental health issues.
Thank you.
And I think the takeaway that I would have is that therapy is important, medication is great, but it's community that really heals.
Go ahead.
And everything we do in our mental health work should be aimed at building community, including events like this, so thank you.
Can I just say what they said? Actually, if there's one thing, is that I'd say there are no easy answers, but there are many answers. And if you put enough of the answers together, you can hobble a safety net for people who are suffering from mental illnesses.
Ditto what all these very wonderful people said. I think one big takeaway for me working in this realm a little bit is that we all love people who are challenged by mental illnesses. I come from an illustrious line of alcoholics and mental institute patients, and I love them all. And getting to make something in film about this topic is an expression of love. And as soon as we can love that part of all of us, because we all are connected to it, I think we begin to heal it in a real way. So,
I'd say other than the thing I said earlier about wanting young people to know they're not alone, I'd say in a very personal way, I would want the work to, as an example of if you address if you address the challenge that might have faced you with your friends, that there is a time when, yes, it becomes a part of you, but there's a time when you have a lot more space in your heart and your mind and your soul for the happy things of life and for family. I think sometimes when people whether they're dealing with substance abuse or mental health issues, they feel that it's a never-ending climb. It's never going to get better. And yet, I just would hope that the end of my movie would let people know that it actually does.
Thank you. I want to ask this question because I think these are pre-screened questions that I believe have come from the audience in some aspect or another, and there are still empty microphones if people want to ask more. In Silver Linings Playbook, the path to recovery for both of the main characters seems to hinge on the development of the love relationship between them. Now, is this a common path to recovery, and was it realistic? And any of you can take that, you can jump in on that one, because I'd like to hear what you have to think. Or I'll call on you, Marta.
You want to take it? Sure, why not? I think it is a vital part of recovery. It's a vital part of finding who we are as people. I think that's why the work that Drew does is so lovely. I don't know him. I was very moved by his speech. And whether it was realistic, who cares? It was a beautiful movie, and they got a 5. That's great.
And you know, I have to say, I think ballroom dancing doesn't hurt.
There you go.
And I'll just say that I think, you know, love is fundamental to all of the different types of relationships that we can have, whether it be a love of a partner, a love of a family member, a love of a friend, or the love that we just have for the basics of being a person. And what I loved about Silver Linings Playbook that I thought was very realistic is it showed also that love can have its bumps and it can have its struggles and it can have its yelling and screaming, but at the end of the day, everybody loved each other and everybody was able to support each other and help the community together, the friends and the family help a person reach their recovery. And that's the most important thing I think we can all remember.
I think a nice segue, that's a nice segue to the next question, which is what experiences or individuals have motivated you, each of you, to incorporate behavioral health themes in your work? So I guess that's the latter half of the table.
God, it's a long list. In my family, like in Kristen's, there is a great deal of addiction and mental illness and anxiety and depression, and but I have to say, actually, the thing that really pushed me over the edge, my best friend of 30-some years was telling her mother suffered from bipolar disorder, and she had a major psychotic break, and she's a lawyer in a law firm in New York, and she said to me that she was going to see her mother in the hospital, but she didn't want to tell her partners where she was going and why her mother was in the hospital. And I was so stunned by that. I was so stunned by the stigma that so many people still feel their inability to say the words out loud. And that's what got me to finally feel like something had to be done, and we just had to say the words.
Well, I had the great honor of working with Marta on a film called 5, subtitled Call Me Crazy. We did another one of that same format of anthology, but on breast cancer. So I like when people in the entertainment industry say, you know, we're not curing cancer, I like to say, well, speak for yourself. Because I'm actually in the industry to make a difference and to find a way to incorporate actually important, meaningful topics into entertainment and what we do to tell stories. So I'm honored to be here tonight with all of you because that's what we're doing here, and we have the courage and the ability to do it, and that's why I got into the entertainment industry in the first place. So it was a true dream, to get to work with Marta Kauffman and other friends of ours and to create something that might actually help people in addition to take them on a ride with a story, with a great story. So like Marta, a lot of family members inspired me to want to do that and be committed to the idea of making a difference in entertainment.
I'd say for me, of course, family and many friends have been through some things. But I just want to mention one person specifically who inspired an early incarnation of the story in my book, and then, of course, the movie. His name is Stuart Stern. I don't think many people in this room would actually know his name, but he wrote a very, very important movie called Rebel Without a Cause. And I've known him since I was a film school student and I was 17 years old. He's been my mentor and friend and hero ever since. And the character of the teacher in my movie is based on Stuart and kind of his positive messages. And what is so amazing about Stuart, who is still very much alive, he's 92 years old, and it goes to show you how powerful recovery is, that he fought in World War II. And I asked him once, Stuart, did you ever see combat? He said, yes, for 3 weeks during the Battle of the Bulge. And he suffered from PTSD and had no idea what it was for, I'm not as good at math, 40, 50, 60 years. And he just joined a group through the VA in Seattle, and he sits there. He's the elder statesman in a group with gentlemen who fought in Korea and Vietnam and Persian Gulf and Iraq, Afghanistan. And these gentlemen who span 60 years, they help each other. And even though I did not deal with that in my movie, he continues to be a big inspiration to me to this day.
Terrific. I think we have some people at the microphone, so can we hear from you?
Hello. Hi. I'm not a major, producer. I don't make films. I haven't facilitated any, national programs or anything. I'm just your average schmo girl. And the most human interaction I seem to have on a daily basis is driving my car. So I can't imagine, what can I do on a daily basis? Just a small thing in my life. I mean, these things that we're celebrating, that we're talking about, are so big to me. They're so big and so fantastic and almost abstract. What can I do as, general citizen female of the universe? I mean, I could imagine, going out and hugging people, but, I'd have to stop my car, and that would, when am I going to do that? So what's something tangible that I can do in my daily life? I mean, I want to help.
So, put a smile on your car and have it be a drive-by smile station. But I do think that many people are just looking for someone to be a listening ear, to be that smile, to be that hello, because our lives can be so incredibly lonely. We're talking about the fear of being able to speak out and talk about having a mental health issue, especially as young adults. They're just finding who they are, and then to be told, oh, you have a mental illness, it switches who they become, and it shouldn't. So anything we can do just to flash that smile at the person at the grocery store, look like you want to say hello, have a bit of a conversation. We don't do that in the US anymore. I go other places in other countries, hola, ¿cómo está? All sorts of stuff. Here, we don't say hello, a simple hello. That will make a difference.
I'd also love to add that you can also take very seriously who you vote for. Sir?
Hi, good evening. My name is Guy Richards. I'd just like to make a comment, if I may. I am one of those people with Access 1 bipolar disorder. I had a substance abuse problem for many years. I've been in 53 treatment centers around the country. I've died twice. I've tried to commit suicide. And today, I am proud to say, we flew in from Florida, my father and I, Sal Richards, for these Voice Awards. And I am grateful. I am grateful for people like yourself, for people in the audience, to represent my illness the correct way. Just like I'm in show business, you have an agent, you have a booking agent, manager, whatever it may be, and you want them to represent you the best way possible. But my heart, and I get choked up because I'm alive to talk about it. I am grateful to be grateful. I have representation that really has taken a stand from a humble heart and a very brilliant mind. To have everybody get together and say, this is a stigma. People used to think I was crazy. Oh, he's out of his mind. He's nuts. He's nuts. He's going to the Voice Awards. He thinks he's going to see CeeLo Green. You know? But I am at a point in time in my life where I give back today. And I give back from my heart. And I go around and I speak as a motivational speaker, and I talk about mental illness and bipolar disorder. And I use my, thank you. And I use my comedy, because that's what I do, in light to let other people know it is okay to laugh. Laughter is the best medicine. So in closing, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to come up there and shake each one of your hand, because it's people like you that save people like me. May I?
Sure. Come on up. You can also perhaps hug, too, if you want. I think that's part of the theme of the evening.
I can what?
You can hug as well if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, I'll hug. I'll hug. And I'll come around. We'll hug everybody.
In the meantime, actually, if you can do it quietly, the hugging, we'll take our last question.
Hello, my name is Stan Collins, and I work in the field of suicide prevention, specifically youth suicide prevention. And so I want to start with Mr. Schabowski. First to say thank you. It's rare that we have a responsible and a respectful portrayal of suicide. So in your film, I appreciate the angle that you took. And on that, it's a question but also a request, is that it seems that typically in film and media that we see portrayals of suicide not come from a preventative nature, that typically it's after someone has died by suicide that suicide gets brought into a script. And so I'm wondering, just from your world, if there's anything that could be done more to show that suicide is preventable, because the reality is that most of the people who think about or attempt suicide don't end up dying by it, but also what we can do to educate through these films about the warning signs and resources as well. So it's a question and a request.
This may not be the most popular response, but I have to be honest with you and say there's a reason that dramatically things start after the suicide, and the reason is it's more dramatic. And when you're writing something, you want to write the most dramatic moments. I also have to say that our job in the entertainment business, our jobs are to entertain. If, while we're doing that, someone can feel less alone, then we've done something incredible. It's very tricky to educate while you're entertaining. It's very difficult to do and to do it well. I think what the goal is to write things that you care about, to direct things you care about, produce things that you care about, and hope that while you get enough eyes on it, they might learn something on top of it. And that's just from sort of a purely craft perspective.
Craft and reality crass. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, also the motivation is to get people to talk. So the idea is to light a fire, wake someone up, help someone realize the person laying on their couch is not a lazy person, it's a clinically depressed person, and they need to make some phone calls for that person. We may not be able to say, these are the 5 ways to get help, but we can hopefully light a fire to say, get help, and then they gotta do some of their footwork on their own, to make it happen.
And then I think that's where Karis and I come in, and it's our responsibility to carry on that conversation and give people a place where they can get help and where it's okay to ask the questions and have the conversation. So I think the entertainment industry starts the conversation, and then we get to continue that conversation in a way that leads to hope, wellness, and recovery.
Can I just make a plug for one quick thing? I want to say, to answer your question specifically, there is one organization that was involved in our film called Love is Louder, and it was started by one of the people who star in our films, Brittany Snow, who started this organization with a gentleman who's here tonight. And it really is a powerful organization that is geared toward younger people and giving them the steps and outreach to help them before they get to the point where there is, there's no return. So there are organizations out there.
And actually, I've been told we would like to take one more question, if it can be relatively quick, from this side.
The mic? Oh, thank you. Vicki Mays, UCLA. One of the things that you talked about was the notion of community. And, as I was listening to Drew and to Mr. Gilmore and others, one of the focus that we have is really on integrating our mental health services and primary care. How do we really make sure that the voices that we've heard today are really coming into that care environment?
So I think that one of the ways that we need to do that is to respond to the opportunities that we heard about today in the implementation of the Affordable Care Act that gives health coverage to people who haven't had that before. And here in Los Angeles, we're trying to root that coming together in neighborhoods. So what we're hoping to do is to have, for example, the mental health, the substance abuse, the primary care assets that serve a particular neighborhood to come together to share practice among those three organizations, but to do more than that, to reach out to churches, to schools, to clubs, to health clubs, to see if we can address what they call the social determinants of health and mental health outcomes, because it turns out that what really leads to healthy people is not so much access to treatment as a healthy community. And so we think that in the long run, creating healthy communities will make health plans and health insurance cost less. So we think this is not just an effort that will be better at providing health care, but also be better at saving health costs in the long run. Anyway, that's our hypothesis, and we're going to test it.
And I'd just like to add that the importance of peer services, peer-run organizations, and listening to, and not just listening to, but making sure that people who have a lived experience of a mental health issue, substance use issue, and their family members are a part of giving advice about how these community, and I say inclusion, it's great to be integrated in, I want to be included in, I want to be a part of, I'm not a separate outside of. So the Department of Mental Health in LA County, and I think even throughout our state, has really inculcated and brought in the voices of everybody who becomes a part of that community and a part of that quote-unquote system. And that, I think, is really going to ensure that the services that we receive, we say the word consumer, I don't consume up stuff, I contribute stuff. So, and in order to do that, we have to be a part of the team, not a separate part of the team. Thank you.
And so I want to thank our panel. I think this is a beautiful partnership here that we're watching. I also just want to remind all of us, I don't know if you heard the news today, but they have found inscriptions on the inside of the gun of the shooter of the Navy Yard. And the inscriptions were just simply a plea for help. And it's the people in this room and this organization and the process that we're all a part of that are trying to answer that call and provide that help. So thank you all for being a part of it. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. I had to sort of crouch behind him for a second. Thank you, everyone, for your candor tonight. And please give our panelists and our moderator another round of applause. In our final segment tonight, we are honoring productions and people who have given a voice to consumers and peers. Presenting our first award in this category is Voice Awards Entertainment Industry Judge, actor Andy Como. Sorry, I butchered that name.
I'm proud to present the next award to Call Me Crazy, a 5 film. Through the 5 shorts named after each title character, powerful relationships built on hope and triumph raise a new understanding of what happens when a loved one experiences mental illness. And as you heard in the panel, the production is being showed on 100 campuses around the country as a part of the Love is Louder mental health campaign. Courtney Knowles from the campaign is here with us tonight. Welcome, Courtney. And Maggie, a veteran, returns home from war and begins dealing with post-traumatic stress. When she feels threatened with losing custody of her son due to her mental illness, a tremendous peer advocate, also a consumer, is there to ensure understanding and acceptance of her character, not her disorder. I think there's a clip here. Yeah.
Your Honor.
I'm proud to present the 2013 Voice Award to Call Me Crazy and executive producers Christine Hahn, Marta Kaufman, and screenwriter Jan Oxenberg.
I'll start, and I left my piece of paper at home that had all the smart things I was going to say on it, so I'm going to have to wing it a little bit. First of all, the 5 of us who executive produced have to thank Sony and Lifetime. I wish I could say that we were just thanking them for supporting us and doing the film that we wanted to do, but we also have to thank them for their courage in putting this on, and they had their own fights to get this film made, and we are deeply, deeply appreciative. We had 5 extraordinary writers, and this is one of them. Portraying mental illness is not easy. It's not tidy. There are no single experiences that can represent all of them. There are no easy answers, but these 5 writers, I think, reached into the depths of their hearts and their souls and portrayed people with mental illnesses with so much love, and I am deeply, deeply grateful to them.
thank you so much for this. This is why we did this. When we got this email that we were given this award, the 20-hour days that we pulled for 6 months in a row were suddenly just washed away with happiness, because this is why we did it. We want to get it out to people. We want to be a part of a community that cares about this, that wants to destigmatize this, and just put some love out there. And I want to say, in defense of our clip, that the rest of the 5 films are really funny. We actually do believe in the power of humor to heal. We believe in telling the truth as much as you can. And as Marta said, there are many versions of the truth in reality of mental illness. So, you know, it's a tricky, scary area to do something in as an entertainer, but I feel that it's our obligation. I know everyone in this room feels it's an obligation and an honor to get to do something in recovery and mental health and entertainment. So thank you for this honor. It means a lot to us. And thank you to Byron Smith, our editor, who's here as well.
We need to focus on brain research.
So, Dad, you need to go back. You need to face your fears.
I want to ask you to start at the beginning, when you were first diagnosed with schizophrenia.
For the longest time, there's just been a divorce between the head and the body.
So you really want to know what it's like when you go into a psychiatrist's office and you sit down.
The key is to seek and accept help, because with help, there is hope. Until next time, I'm Dr. Jeff Borenstein. Goodbye.
Please welcome the host of Healthy Minds, who is also the president of the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, Dr. Jeffrey Borenstein.
Thank you. I'm pleased and honored to present this award to an exceptional person who I'm proud to call my friend. His story is truly one of hope. At age 10, William Killebrew witnessed the murders of his mother and 12-year-old brother. After 3 years with no therapy and a family strategy of trying to forget about this traumatic experience, William made a suicide attempt at the age of 13. This was the turning point in the beginning of William's recovery. He was hospitalized more than 9 times with severe depression and PTSD. He often turned to violence, drugs, alcohol, and unhealthy relationships to cope with his past experiences. He credits his journey of recovery to his grandmother, family members, his first ever therapist, Christine Pierre, assistant principal Charles C. Christian, and others. He shares that it takes a community, hope, and resiliency to survive every day. William is a survivor and a motivational speaker who focuses on trauma and recovery, helping to implement trauma-informed practices across systems of care, especially where children, youth, and families are concerned. It's my great pleasure to present the 2013 Consumer Peer Leadership Award to William Killebrew.
Just move on up. Move on up. We move on up. Watch out, but just move on up.
When I am down and oh, my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart's burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas, and I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to all that I can be. Healing is possible and recovery is absolutely a guarantee. Yes. At age 6, I was violently sexually assaulted. My voice was taken away. I was silent. At age 10, I witnessed my family murdered in our own living room. The killer that day silenced me. I begged for my life that day at gunpoint at 10. My mother lay on the ground as a hero, a shiro, and my leader and my guide and my protector was there. And my brother lay there as 12 years old. But I left that room not knowing what would happen to me. I was silenced. Well, at 13, I wanted to jump off of a bridge, and I attempted that, but I made my way to a hospital. I was taken to a hospital, and I made my way there by myself with my assistant principal guiding the way. And I met a therapist who became an amazing person to me. She set the standard for how we are supposed to introduce people to the mental health system. She took me down to the cafeteria and she opened her hands and said, "What would you like to have out of this cafeteria?" And I chose an ice cream cone. And I must have built the biggest ice cream cone that you could make on this side of Earth. And I sat there across from Christine Pierre, and I licked that ice cream cone for nearly a year, because that's how long she was my therapist. I never forgot her name. I never forgot what she did. 26 years later, I Googled her, and I got a call back from the office saying that they had found someone that wanted to get in touch with me. And so I called her, and I picked up the phone. I said, "May I speak to Miss Christine Pierre?" And she said to me, "This is Christine Pierre." And I said, "Well, did you work at Children's Hospital in 1987, 1988? And she said to me, "Yes, I did." And I said, "Well, my name is William Killebrew. Do you remember me?" And she said, "No." I work with trauma-informed practices, and that wasn't quite trauma-informed. She was about to lose her points. But in that next moment, she said, "Tell me who you are." And I said to her, I told her a bit about my story. And she said, "I remember you." She said to me, "I wanted to tell you something when you were a patient that I couldn't tell you because of professional boundaries." And I said, "Well, what was that?" She said to me, "When you were my patient, my mother died." And so every time I walked into her office as a 13-year-old who had lost hope, she allowed me to borrow hope in that room where her voice and choice was taken away. She gave me voice just in the cafeteria room with an ice cream cone. So to Christine Pierre and all of the individuals who every day, in and out, get up and have their passion in their hand to give a kid like me a voice, I stand here today with that voice. You know, 61% of men and 61% of women in our general population will have experienced one lifetime traumatic event. That means that's more than half of the room sitting here today. The problem is we don't know who has experienced the trauma. So we should presume that everyone sitting here has had a traumatic experience, so we do not get it wrong. If you want to know what you can do to help, trauma disrupts a sense of connection, control, and meaning. Christine Pierre connected with me for a year. She gave me control back in my life and gave me voice and choice when she introduced herself to me. And thirdly, she gave me meaning, and I never forgot it. And so as I work across the country with SAMHSA's National Center for Trauma-Informed Care as a consultant there, in the National Association of State Mental Health Program Directors, I work to give voice to the very concerns that we're talking about today. And so to the Christine Pierres out there, to the Charles C. Christians, to my grandmother, to my family, to my friends, to everybody's watching today, and everybody sitting here, I would not be here if it wasn't for you. So I just want to say this award I accept on behalf of everybody that we're serving today and everybody who has a passion in the film industry, in the entertainment industry, who puts a focus on what we're talking about today. I'm a vessel. Thank you very much.
Hug it out, hug it out. Love you guys. Presenting our next award is Dr. Robert DeMaio, President-elect of the California Psychological Association and Associate Dean and Professor of Psychology at Pepperdine University, Graduate School of Education, my old job. Give it up.
Bill Wilson started AA so that other alcoholics could get the peer support they needed to overcome alcohol addiction. In 1999, Wilson was named one of Time magazine's 100 heroes and icons of the 20th century. 65 years earlier, he was facing almost certain death from his uncontrollable drinking. As you'll see in the archival footage that follows, Bill Wilson served as a humble peer leader and a consumer working toward his own sobriety and recovery, always being honest about the real struggles of alcoholism. I'm proud to present this 2013 Voice Award to the documentary Bill W. Accepting this award is co-director and co-producer Kevin Hanlon.
I want to start by saying that Dan Carasino, who is not only the co-director and co-producer of this film, but my very dear friend, was unable to be here tonight. And I feel sad about that because I feel that he is more responsible than anybody else for getting this film made. Both he and I are deeply honored to accept this award from SAMHSA. I thought about this as I was coming here. There's no little bit of irony for me that I'm standing here accepting an award for a film that we made about a man who spent more than half his life trying to avoid awards and honors and recognition. Bill Wilson was a person who was very humble and did an enormous amount of work, really in the shadows in a way. But Dan and I felt very strongly that, that not only his personal story, but that the work he did that helped so many millions of other people was really a story worth telling. At a time when alcoholism was far less well understood and the stigma about it was far worse than it is even now, Bill Wilson was given a death sentence. He was told there was absolutely no hope and that he would be dead within a year. And so in some ways I feel like his voice is one of the most original voices of recovery and one of the most unique, because not only did he find a way out of that death sentence for himself, but he dedicated the rest of his life to trying to help other people not die from the very thing that had almost killed him. I want to read something that he said more than 50 years ago. There is the question of opening channels of communication to those that don't know. And how many are there that still don't know? Since our society came into existence, conservative figures tell us that before us has passed a melancholy procession of 25 million, and that we have fished 1 in 100. Right out in front of us tonight, worldwide, there are millions who would come in the direction of treatment if they only knew how ill they really were. When we first started this film, Dan said to me that if we made a film that helped even one person realize that they were suffering from an illness that was treatable, that it would have been well worth doing. And I hope in some small way what we've done may show some people that there is treatment and recovery from the scourge that is alcoholism and addiction. One other little irony, we were not able to find a studio or a backer for the film, so we decided to distribute it ourselves, which is a daunting task. We were one of the top grossing documentaries of 2012, and it was strictly through a grassroots effort. But we came to realize by the end of that run that we were in theaters for more than 6 or 8 months, but it was almost all members of AA or other 12-step groups. In other words, people who already had recovery. And I sort of felt like we were preaching to the choir. So if there's anybody out there tonight that knows anybody at Lionsgate or Sony Classic Pictures or has any other ideas about how we might get this film out to people who don't know and people who really would benefit from knowing, I'd love to talk to you later. One last thing, and I know I'm just echoing a theme that I've been hearing tonight, but when we started out, one of the wisest people I ran into on this project, I heard him say that the absolute crux of addiction was isolation, that people who suffered from alcoholism or any other addiction were living in isolation. Later, years later, I heard an AA member at a meeting say that the absolute bottom line of recovery was connection, that it was about connection. So many people have said that tonight in so many different ways, but I mention it because I really feel that that's what the power of stories are in 12-step recovery and in recovery in general. It's when somebody else is telling a story that speaks to me about something I may have gone through. It opens up doors that can't be opened up any other way. There's an historian in our film who describes it. He says, what it's all based on is mutual vulnerability openly shared. So for that reason, I feel like I owe a very special thanks, after Bill Wilson himself, to all the people in our film who were willing to go on camera and be honest about what they'd been through and share their stories, because that's really, I think that that's what recovery is about. So thank you very much.
From SAMHSA, please welcome Carlton Spate.
Jennifer Constantine went from isolation of dealing with a mental illness to being a mental health advocate, wife, and mother. She speaks openly about learning to integrate the experience of hearing voices in other extreme states into a now vibrant and productive life. Jennifer believes that the key to healthier and more inclusive communities is simple. Start talking, apply mutual respect, and draw on the wisdom of those who have been there. It is my great pleasure to present the 2013 Consumer Peer Leadership Award to Jennifer Constantine.
In your face and the door keeps slamming. Make you feel more and more frustrated, and you're getting all kind of impatient. Waiting, we live and we learn to take one step at a time. There's no need to rush. It's like learning to fly or falling in love. It's gonna happen when it's supposed to happen, that we find the reasons why. One step back.
Yeah, I just realized that thing spins, so I'm glad I brought paper, because that's going to not work. I'd like to thank Leah Harris from the National Empowerment Center, not just for nominating me for this award, but the way she nominated me. In the interest of nothing about us without us, she asked permission to nominate me and showed me the nomination that she wanted to submit. So while I expressed my extreme discomfort with the process of receiving an award, I also acknowledge the importance of recognition like this to advance the visibility of the work my peers and I are doing in South Dakota. So I gave Leah permission to nominate me, thinking this is a big national award. I wouldn't be the one to get it anyway, so go ahead. And here I am. A big part of my extreme discomfort stems from the pain I feel when people are excluded. When one person is treated as greater than, others are sometimes seen as less than. When I was treated as less than, I learned a sense of entitlement. I learned that the world owed me, that I deserved to be given things without any expectation of recompense. After all, I was sick, broken, less than, incapable of giving back. My experiences are not really much different than they were then. I still live in constant altered states of reality. Right now I'm seeing and hearing a multitude of things that the rest of you in this same room are unaware of. The difference is now I see that the way I experience life, while different in ways than most people, makes sense given the unique set of life experiences that brought me to where I am today. Now I have people in my life to talk with, to process tough experiences as they are ongoing. I have people who understand, accept, and support me just as I am. That transition didn't happen by accident, and it doesn't continue by chance. I have been given great opportunity to grow and to heal through this work, and I have many people to thank. My husband and my kids, I'm going to throw in there too, because I wrote this in 5 minutes earlier today, so I missed that because I was thinking work-wise, but my kids are really a big part of the reason why I do this work. I want them to grow up in a world that treats people better than the world does today in a lot of instances. I really want to thank also the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, because without SAMHSA, I would not be doing this work today. Without their support, I would not have found a group of peers forming a nonprofit in South Dakota who share my passion for this work. I would never have met great friends and mentors like Oryx Cohn, Leah Harris, and Judine Shelley at the National Empowerment Center. And I also want to thank PJ Moynihan from Digitalized Film, who has become a dear friend and who is doing amazing work to improve exposure of the reality of the value of lived experience in the mainstream. And I want to thank all the people who share this priority in the film industry. I'm greatly honored at being recognized through this award and would like to accept it on behalf of all the people in South Dakota, in the US, and around the world who work hard every day to bring visibility to the value of this work and to share the truth about people labeled with mental health and substance use problems. That given the options and opportunity, all people have valuable contributions to make to the world. So, thanks.
Can anybody guess what's about to happen? That's right. It's part of the awards now. Thanks for sticking with us. Now I'd like you to meet Terry Chaney, one of our 4 amazing people profiled in the next award winner documentary, Of Two Minds.
Good evening. Of Two Minds explores the extraordinary lives, struggles, and successes of individuals living with bipolar disorder, from exquisite feelings of grandiosity and sensuality to the depths of despair and depression. In this clip, we meet journalist Liz Spiegel, who shares how her blog about mental illness has provided a way for her to help others and receive some peer support of her own. And the people you're going to honor tonight are one of the reasons that I'm able to stand in front of you and openly say I'm bipolar. I'm very proud to present this 2013 Voice Award to Of Two Minds. Accepting this award are writer, producer, and co-executive director Lisa J. Klein and co-director Doug Blush.
Wow. Thank you, SAMHSA, for this really terrific honor. If Lisa and I, 5 years ago, if we had known the incredible adventures and revelations we were about to discover taking on this enormous topic of bipolar, I don't know if we would have had the stamina to make it through, and yet we did, thanks to some incredible people. One of the great joys of making a small independent film like this is to take it out and actually show it to the people across the country and actually all around the world when we hopefully get the chance. And one of the most amazing moments for me, one of the galvanizing moments, was when we took it to Canada. We were showing it in Toronto, and one of their top reviewers for the Toronto Star reviewed the film. We knew they were going to review the film, so we got a copy of the Toronto Star, and we looked, and there it is on the front page of the entertainment section. We're like, yeah, we're going to get a front page review. And we begin reading it, and it says, to paraphrase, this is the writer writing in his own voice, "I'm not sure if I wanted to review the new film Of Two Minds, not because it isn't a great film, it is, but," and he takes a minute, "but because it's about me." And I realized reading this that he was coming out to his entire readership about his own bipolar and his own tale, his own story. And moments like that have been happening to us throughout the entire process of this film. So I realize that that is a tribute to our incredible, brave, wonderful, honest people who were in the film, and I'm going to let Lisa tell you about them.
Because I didn't know what I was going to say, which is why Doug went first, and I've been formulating it. So what I want to do first is the inspiration for this film absolutely was my sister, who lived with bipolar disorder for many years until she didn't. And my family in general, because I was trying to think as I was sitting there, like who in my family did not have some form of mental illness, and I couldn't come up with anything. So, but what and just making the movie and doing it, the people I really want to thank, because the movie would not be a movie. Terry, who presented and is probably somewhere, Sherry and Carl and Petey, and who were unbelievable, and the access and just being able to talk to them, and it was incredible. And Liz, who is not here because she's in Philadelphia, and Tim Pilko, the psychiatrist, who helped us enormously through the whole project and was going to be here and is not here, and Jennifer Lewis, also in it, and our amazing executive producer, Christine O'Malley. And thank you, SAMHSA, Voice Awards, and whoever I might be forgetting. Thank you so much. And I love you, Mad.
They said you might be restless.
Now it is my great pleasure to present SAMHSA's Lifetime Achievement Award to Joseph Rogers. Following a path of recovery from mental illness today, Joseph is the Chief Advocacy Officer of the Mental Health Association of Southeastern Pennsylvania and founder and executive director of the National Mental Health Consumers Self-Help Clearinghouse, which helps people across the country chart their own course to recovery. Joe has testified before the U.S. Senate committees and has consulted in more than 30 states. He played a key role in the discontinuance of the Philadelphia State Hospital, as well as in the successful struggle to get funding to provide community-based services to the patients from that hospital, establishing what has become today a model system of community-based services. Joe was one of the earliest, most outspoken, and most daring leaders of the American mental health consumer movement. He continues to be a giant in our field, and he is a cool guy. Joseph couldn't be with us tonight, but he has recorded a message for all of you.
I'm grateful to SAMHSA for this Lifetime Achievement Voice Award, and I especially want to thank SAMHSA for its groundbreaking work to promote hope and recovery for those of us with even the most severe mental health conditions. When I was 19 years old, I had just been released from a state hospital and was living in a halfway house. I hoped that the vocational rehabilitation counselor could help me. Instead, he said, "I can see from your chart that you'll never be able to hold a job." I thought my life was over. I'm glad to say that it wasn't. But over the years, I've thought about how easily that counselor dismissed my chances for a meaningful life. For several decades, I have been involved in the movement for social justice organized by and for individuals with mental health conditions. A key goal of our movement is to eliminate the discrimination and prejudice that prevent us from full inclusion in the community. Dealing with this discrimination and prejudice can be worse than dealing with a mental illness, and will not give up until we will not give up until we won this battle and achieved full citizenship. Again, I am honored to receive this award. Thank you.
To introduce our final two Voice Awards of the night, we welcome an accomplished film and television actress from Call Me Crazy and currently starring in ABC Family's Switched at Birth. Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Thompson.
Wow, what an amazing evening. Wow. David O. Russell realizes that difficult scenarios, relationships, and diagnoses provide some of the best opportunities to educate others about what life is really like for those with mental or substance use disorder. His complex characters mimic real people in our communities who, despite their illnesses, are working forward towards healing and recovery. Sometimes with the help of family, sometimes coworkers, sometimes newly found friends. From his work on films such as The Fighter to this year's blockbuster Silver Linings Playbook, Russell demonstrates that in film, where reality is often suspended, you can find truth and understanding and share it with others. I'm very proud to present the 2013 Career Achievement Award to David O. Russell. Sadly, David could not be with us tonight, but he has recorded his acceptance message right here.
Thank you. This is David O. Russell, and I want to thank you for this Voice Award, or what you're calling a Career Achievement Award. I would say that it was my privilege to make Silver Linings Playbook, and very personal to me and my son and my family and all the people I've known through my son. The film was a gift to me from them, anyone facing a mood disorder, and I can now walk into a supermarket or a newsstand and people will come up to me and tell me that they know someone or they themselves have faced a challenge like that. That wouldn't have happened before the film, and they said the film helped remove some of the stigma for that. It was my privilege to make the film. And as I've learned as a storyteller over about 20 years, through all the films, you're looking for the stories that are the people who are struggling and who are overlooked or feel overlooked or feel like they're facing something they can't deal with. And that's what makes the best stories, their lives and everyone around them. So it was all those years of storytelling and learning to, as best as I could with The Fighter and, and all the films before that, to tell these stories that led to Silver Linings, which I have great affection for. And these voices are important. So thank you, and thank you for this award. And it's going to inspire me to do more work and better work.
Now the final award, I believe. In Silver Linings Playbook, Pat has lost his house, his job, and his wife. After spending 8 months in a residential facility, he moves in with his parents and begins a quest to manage his bipolar disorder, rebuild his life, and reunite with his wife. To Pat, recovery means replicating the life he had before. He has a very clear vision for what and who will make him happy. He tries to recover his job, his friends, and his personal relationships. When he befriends Tiffany, who is dealing with her own trauma, he becomes able to reimagine a future without its usual players. Here we witness the deepening of a peer relationship into something positive for both of them. Accepting the award tonight is Silver Linings Playbook executive producer George Para.
Hello, and thank you. Yes, what a great evening. Thank you very much. I'll make this short and sweet. On behalf of fellow producers, Donna Gelati, Bruce Cohen, John Gordon, Michelle Ramo, and in particular Harvey and Bob Weinstein, who without Bob and Harvey and their company, this film would have never been made or financed. Thank you to Bob and Harvey. But most importantly, I want to thank Director David O. Russell for giving me the opportunity to work on this brilliant piece. Without him and his brilliant script, this would have never happened. I think it exposed mental illness to not only America, but the world. And I want to thank you very much and have a great evening. Thank you.
Hey. So thank you all again to all the writers and the producers who are giving a voice to everyone with a behavioral health problem. And special thank you to our presenters and our honorees. He tied his own tie and he's 15. That's pretty amazing.
He helped me. We look forward to seeing all of you and the programs and films you create next year. Good night.